Simmons, two entrepreneurs who traced their roots to East Africa and set up shop in Nairobi. They are now trying to aid many others through using their company Guide African Americans on to invest after tracing their roots. I was curious to find out how they went through the process and why to check out their roots.
My aunt did our DNA, and she used the process which they trace it through the Eve. And so this is traced through your mother, and it was traced all the way back here to Kenya. So my family is 47.7% Kenyan and of the Luya tribe.
Wow.
Yes, and we found it important because when I started coming to Kenya back in 2012, I could not explain why it was so near and dear to me. And so tracing our roots definitely solidify why we love the country so much.
There's been a lot of talk here in Africa about the year of the return. Why this interest in East Africa?
We were military, but we didn't work in the military together. We were civilians and we were contracting, and we worked with a lot of Kenyans. We have a lot of Kenyan friends. So once we took to them, they told us to come back home and visit them. So we came back at home and we fell in love with Kenya.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Conversations from the Diaspora, a Building Africa's Future podcast. And I'm your host, your sister, and your friend, Nkiru. And I would like to welcome you all to today's conversation. On today's episode, I'm joined by a special guest, Kea Simmons. She is a U.S. military veteran who gained inspiration for Worldviews, an organization she co-founded during her time as a government contractor. Her organization promotes traveling, investing, and international networking with a strong commitment to giving back to each location they visit through community service and by supporting local businesses. Worldviews is a travel concierge company that specializes in business development on the continent. So Kea, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you for coming on. It's an honor to have you. So you and I, we've been connected on social media for quite some time now. I think about 8 years or so through a mutual friend. And I don't remember exactly how we got connected, but there was something about your work and the things that you would post that really intrigued me, particularly what you stood for and what you stand for, which is, empowering members of the African diaspora. And recently you made a series of posts, I think in the past couple of months or so, that really stood out to me. And I just had to have you come on the show. So thank you again. And for our viewers and our listeners, this is actually part one of our Motherland series, which more information will be coming on that. Essentially, it's just a chance for me to connect with people who have either recently traveled to the continent or plan on doing some type of maybe investment or work on the continent. Just a way to connect and hear their stories. Actually, Kea, if you don't mind, I want to show a brief video before we get into the questions. So let me just find that real quickly.
Sure. Yay,
So-
we got people watching.
Yeah. Thank you for people who are tuning in. Please comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So Kea, again, the two videos that you posted recently that moved me the most. The first one was The Door of No Return on Gori Island in Senegal. And then the other one was when the women in the community that you visited, like the way they welcomed you and your friend, something about it just kind of moved me like nearly to tears. And I could see in your face as well, like it was kind of an overwhelming, joyful, kind of beautiful experience. I don't know if you could share with us, while the video plays in the background, if you can kind of share with the viewers and the listeners, what was kind of going on in your mind in those moments, and what are some things, like what, can you just speak to us about your experience?
Okay. Yeah, so you want me to do that once the video is playing or after
Oh, no,
it?
yeah, you can go ahead. It's going to play in the background.
Okay. Yeah, so so if you're playing The Door of Return, that was just a very emotional experience. Now, I had been to The Door of Return before in 2018, and it was the same experience. So I didn't think that I would go back this time and still feel the same way, but the ancestors spirits is so there on Gory Island, and it's just overwhelming. And so at that moment, as you see me in this video, I literally control my emotions because I literally can feel the ancestors speaking to me and through me as I touch on the walls. As you can see, I'm like touching the walls, and I can hear the waves hitting the walls. And I at that moment, trying to imagine what they were thinking as they were about to debark on a journey that they had no idea was going to be traumatic, and as we know, historically just horrific for our people. So it was a lot.
Right. On a lighter note, when the women in the community kind of welcomed you, embraced you, how was that feeling?
Yeah, okay, so that was overwhelming as well. It's like, it's a culture shock. You don't, you can't really brace yourself for that type of experience. As you can see, I'm just like trying to take it all in, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Because this is just so amazing and so welcoming. As you can see, my colleague Tanya, she's, oh my God, moved by it. And at this moment, I'm feeling okay. I got myself together. And then you guys will see another woman who just took over and was like, I'm going to rap her. And I just, oh my God, I almost bust out in tears. This lady right here in the purple. And that moment right there was it for me. I didn't know what to do. I'm just like, okay, let me keep it together. But this was the first experience I actually have had in real, authentic, traditional village life there in Senegal. As you guys can see, I've been to 7 other African countries, and this particular experience just was amazing, different, and authentic. So it was just overwhelming right there at that moment where I'm shaking my head. I'm trying not to cry. So, but yeah, it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Very beautiful. Do you know what they were saying, or did anyone kind of help translate?
No.
But you could feel it, like,
but we can feel it. Yeah, it's like when you're in church and people speak in tongues and things like that. And I know, just growing up in the church, we're told that that's spiritual, spirituality. You just start speaking in these tongues and this vibration and things of that nature. And that's how it felt. It was just like, that's the only thing I can probably use so people can relate. But it felt like you were in church. You can feel the spirit of everyone there and our ancestors as well.
I love that. I think you were saying that almost every community you went to, you had like a similar kind of warm embrace from the people there.
Yes, of course. It was a lot, because it was like every ethnic group. So the village in where we were there, and I'll just go in briefly, and but the village where we were there in Senegal is about 4.5 hours away from Dakar. Now, about 85% of the population in Senegal lives in Dakar. So the rest of Dakar is pretty rural and urban. I mean, paved roads that have beautiful infrastructures all the way out to the village. But this particular village is about 4.5 hours, and it has over 15,000 people in this town, and I want to say they have over like 42 ethnic groups. We had the opportunity to visit at least 7 of them, and so imagining going to like 7 different ethnic groups, and they had their own welcoming ceremony and gifts and hugs and smiles, and you're like, oh my God, we didn't have anything to give back. As Americans, we're like, you go somewhere and somebody give you this, you expect to give something back or something like that. But it was just very, very welcoming, overwhelming. No one wanted anything but our smiles and our hugs and welcome us there. And it was just, man, it's an experience you cannot buy. You cannot buy it.
I love that. So Kea, I mean, as you already aware from our conversations and, from us kind of being connected on social media, I love, everything related to the African diaspora, especially when we have African Americans and other people, other members of the diaspora, wanting to connect, wanting to have those kinds of relationships, and the fact that you were able to travel and they saw you and welcomed you. I think that's just like the height of, that, I guess, work that we need to do to get connected and build relationships, which I know is something that you're very passionate and committed to. So I don't know if you can kind of speak a little briefly about that before we kind of go into our other topics.
So yeah, as you said, like, it is a passion of ours, worldviews, to connect the diaspora to continental Africa, and dispel the myths that we both have been told in both communities, especially here in the United States. There's a huge disconnection with just us who born, raised here, lineage here, and even first generation Africans, so continental Africans moving and living here. There is a disconnect, and there is a untold truth, right? And so I think we based our experiences off of that, not really knowing the truth about who we are and how connected we are and how intertwined our paths are. And so it's very important for us to share this through travel with our community, whether you're from the continent or not, because even people who are born and raised here that's from the continent haven't even experienced this as well. I've had a few friends who are first generational continental Africans, and they're like, man, I've never done it. I'm like, man, what do you mean? Your mom and dad is from Africa? And they were like, no, man, when we go home, yeah, we go back to the family, but we don't get to experience that. So it's for all of us to connect the dots and just see how much we really are intertwined with each other.
From our previous conversation, you had mentioned how your time in the military, as well as civilian government contracting, has opened you up more to travel, with Jamaica being your first investment travel and Ethiopia being your first African country that you traveled to. Can you tell us what an investment travel is and how that came to be, as well as your experience traveling to the continent for the first time? And if you could also use the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about how worldviews came to be.
Yes, so for me, and I'm a representation of worldview. So if I say me, I'm still talking about worldviews as a whole. But how I initially got into actually investing in Jamaica and traveling to the continent is when I was working as a civilian government contractor. I was privy to meeting people from all over the world. And one of my first place to travel outside of where I've traveled in the military was actually Jamaica. And I'm actually on a plane and I'm sitting beside this British guy and I'm talking to him, and I think I was like 27, 28 years old. So this is about 10 years ago. And I'm telling him about where I'm going, what I want to do, things like that. And he pulls out his paperwork and he's like, listen, I can help you do your first investment and yada, yada, yada. And it was ATM machines. And that was actually the first international investment, and I didn't have the opportunity to like share this all over the place because I was kind of scared of what my family was going to think and things of that nature, and it was just new territories. But once I was able to do that successfully, and that was back in 2012, I'm like, man, the sky is not the limit. That is the biggest lie that has ever been told. The sky is not the limit. And I don't have to have this, I don't have to have a fancy degree and go to these Ivy League colleges to think outside the box and do something different. And so I met my brother, shout out to James Milowasi, who's Kenyan, and he was the first Kenyan I had ever met. I had met Nigerians and things of that nature here in the States, right? But I had never met a Kenyan before. And in fact, to be quite frank, I didn't know where Kenya was at on the map. And so he was like, I'm from Kenya. I was like, where's that? I know it's in Africa, but where is it on the map? And, you know, I was educated there, you know, it's East Africa and things of that nature. And it's actually a part of the cradle of life. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm going to buy my ticket. I'm going to Africa.
And he thought I was playing. And like 2 weeks later, I came up to him and I was like, I bought my ticket. I'm going to Kenya. So what's up? And we started that endeavor. So I had already booked my trip for Ethiopia before I went to Kenya, and just arriving in Ethiopia as my first African country was amazing. I mean, Ethiopia is the cradle of life. And so I was able to link up with some Rastafarans out there. Most people don't know the Jamaican culture is huge in Ethiopia because of Rastafari and King Selassie I. So I went to a couple of Jamaican compounds out there. I ate jerk chicken in Ethiopia. I was able to go to some of the great museums. I was able to actually see the original beginning of Catholicism, but not in the way that we see it from Roman Catholics, but the African Christian holistic spirituality. So that just opened me up like, wow, man, all the stuff we're told in these books are not true. When you go see them in person in real time, you get to witness it, right? And tell your own story through your perspective. After I went there, then I went to Kenya. I went to Mombasa first. And just arriving in Mombasa, you're like, really? First off, half of these people doing better than us. And this was in 2012. And we're like, man, I've been bamboozled, hoodwinked, and lied to, because what in the world is this, right? It was just an overwhelming experience, a culture shock to literally be in a country where everybody looks like you. No one looks at you weird, and everybody just expect you to be African, right? Until I even talk, they're like, oh, you're from such and such. And even when I do talk, they think that I am, someone returning home after living abroad. So just to feel that way, and they say Akuna Matata. Oh, this is a funny story. I have to share this. So when I didn't know much about Swahili, right? And so we're at this resort. It's owned by the president of Kenya, Kenyatta, the Kenyatta family. The Voyager, shout out to the Kenyatta family. And we're getting breakfast, and it's fresh omelets. It's amazing, right? The food is amazing. I'm walking through the line, and I'm getting my omelet, and he's like, Akuna Matata. And I look back at him, and I said, oh, you saw the Lion King too? He's like, no, that's Swahili. I was like, I had no idea that was Swahili, and that Lion King was a folk tale from Kenya. I had no, Simba is a Swahili name, Mufasa, all of that is Swahili. I had no idea what that meant. So
that's amazing.
That was my first encounter with learning Swahili, Kiswahili.
I love that. I think you mentioned like the feel of a culture shock. When you travel to, a continent that is obviously the people there look a lot more like you, how did that feel? Like, did you kind of feel this sense of like, wow, I'm home kind of?
Yeah, yes, I did. I actually did. But it still was a culture shock. Like, there's a place where everybody look like you. On the bulletin boards, everybody look like you. On the news station, their cartoons are black. The people at the bank is black. You're like, whoa! It's a mind-blowing experience. And like I said, that's almost 9-10 years ago, and I still feel the sensation of being like, whoa, what is this? So but I did feel like at home, because everybody just say karibu, which is welcome in Swahili. Karibu Kenya, karibu dada, which dada is sister in Swahili. And it was just great.
Wow. So Kea, I know you spoke about worldviews a little bit, but could you just kind of touch on a little bit more how it came to be?
Yeah. Worldviews, man. Yes, it's our baby. So Tiffany and I am the co-founder of Worldviews. And my business partner, Tiffany Simmons, we actually share the same name, but we're not related. It's crazy. Our mother's name is the same, and our son's, her son name is my son's father's name. It's ridiculous, right? So we have a lot in common, but we're not related. but we met while we were doing civilian government contracting in Afghanistan back in 2012. And her and I started to travel leisurely. We went to Amsterdam, we went to Vegas, a couple places, and we realized, man, we love to travel. Now, both her and I have a different style of travel, which makes worldviews very unique because you get the best of both worlds. So I'm more of the risk taker. I like to go to these places that nobody talk about, those hidden gems, and I'm gonna go even if you tell me you're not supposed to go. I'm gonna go anyway, just to see for myself. And Tiffany is more of the places everybody know of, but she finds those unique experience to bring it full circle. From her point of view. And then, me, everywhere I went, I also looked for investment opportunities because of that first experience in Jamaica. And so I was overseas working in Iraq. I was working in Erbil, Iraq rather, and I had posted that I was going on vacation. And typically I always take vacation maybe every 3 to 4 months, and I always do at least 5 different countries at one time. And so I posted all of the countries that I was going to, and one of the countries was Kenya. And I had been boasting about Kenya forever to everybody. People were calling me crazy. Why you want to go to Africa and all this stuff? And finally, Tiffany saw this post and she was like, listen, I'm so tired of you talking about this. I'm going. Put it together and I'll meet you there. And that's exactly what happened. She came. I brought my cousin who was currently about to graduate from Morehouse. And now he is at Howard University Law Student. Shout out to my cousin J-Rock. I have to put that out there.
Yes.
He came on the trip, and they had an amazing time. I put it all together. In the entire trip, I'm like, y'all like this? Y'all enjoying yourself? Y'all enjoying yourself? Y'all good? Y'all good? And everybody's like, yeah, we good. And so we got back to the hotel back in Nairobi, and Tiffany and I started talking, and we're like, why aren't we doing this? This is something we love to do. Why aren't we sharing this with the rest of the world? At minimum, we could travel for free, right? If we're working for ourselves, we could travel for free. Why aren't we doing this? And right then and there in Nairobi, Kenya, we said, let's do it. A week later, I went back to Iraq. She was back in the States. We came up with names, and Worldviews was one of them. And we did a small focus group with our friends and family, and Worldviews stood out. And so the meaning of Worldviews is how we view the world through our lens as African Americans, the people of the diaspora, and how the world view us, and what impacts we have had on the world worldwide, not just the continent. Yeah, so that's the story of Worldviews.
That's powerful. That's really powerful.
Thank you.
So, Kea, as we mentioned earlier, since I've known you, you've always been one to promote this awareness, this appreciation of, African heritage. And in one of the interviews, and plus our conversation that we had prior to now, you mentioned that one of your family members, I think it was your aunt, who did a DNA analysis, and you discovered that you're 47% Kenyan and other parts West African, other parts on the continent. So, as a South Carolina native roots, how and why is it important for you to make these connections on the continent?
Yeah, so we are Gullah Geechee. Shout out to Charleston, Chucktown, aka Charlie O. And yes, my aunt who is watching, shout out to Michelle. She did the DNA test on her own, I didn't even know she did it. She just came out of nowhere and was like, I did the DNA test. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yes, Auntie Michelle, shout her out. So she came to me and she did the DNA, and we're looking over, and she knew that Kenya was in the DNA. So she didn't say anything. I started reading it. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? This entire time that I have been in love with this country. And let's be clear. East Africa is not as pan-African as West Africa. I'm going to be honest with you. So there's nothing like, Kenyans ain't out here, like what you see in West Africa. But it was just something about the people, about the land. And lo and behold, we are descendants of Kenya. Now, most of the time, you typically see African Americans being mostly from West Africa.
Yeah.
So it was just quite interesting to see that we had a lineage from Kenya down to the specific tribe, the Luya tribe. And it showed us chronologically that we literally bounced back and forth from Kenya to West Africa back to Kenya, back again. And then we ended up in South Carolina, where you see the Gullah Geechee heritage. And one of the things people don't talk about is the connection and the similarities in the food, the way we talk. And we do basket weaving. We're actually known for basket weaving. And it's a huge presence of basket weaving in East Africa as well as West Africa. But in Kenya, you literally can go somewhere and you see somebody basket weaving. And we are known for basket weaving right there in Charleston, South Carolina. So it's very important to connect the dots. And I'm just so proud to be Gullah Geechee and also having to know my African lineage, both East African and West African.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. I love, when people take that extra step to find out more about their history, about their lineage, about their family. And I just love, someone like you who's clearly taking, the extra steps to incorporate that into your life, and not just knowing, okay, this is where I'm from, but how do I, in my everyday life, kind of build on that knowledge, learn the language, learn the culture, the foods. So I love that. Kudos to you. Thank you for what you do. That's lovely.
Thank you.
Someone was asking, which DNA test did you use, or did your aunt use?
Yeah, so my aunt, if she's still watching, I think she is. If you could put it in the comment section, she know. I'll forget. So she'll put it in the comment section.
Okay. Well, kind of in line with the previous point, and I think you did touch on this a little bit. What were some of the misconceptions you might have had about Africa or Africans prior to traveling, and obviously, seeing the world and seeing, the continent firsthand, versus your understanding now after your travels? And what are some things that keep you wanting to come back and visit the motherland?
Yeah, so one of the misconceptions were, as they showed us back in the 80s, you always seen those videos of the kids with the fly on your face and they're malnourished and all of this craziness. And so over time, you tend to believe those stories, those images. And so I think when I got ready to go, I didn't necessarily believe Africa was like that, right? People living in villages and animals walking around. No, but I certainly did not believe that it was as modern and forward thinking as far as technology and things of that concern. I didn't. And so I still had my misconceptions. I think one of the biggest misconceptions for me was, will we be able to have clean water, or stuff like that? Like, do they have malls? Do they have this? Do they have that? And when we got there, I felt so retarded because they had anything that I could think of. And in fact, the first trip was to look at doing business opportunities. And every idea we came up with, these people already had. And so I just felt so, misinformed. And so to be able to see it up close and personal definitely taught me a lot and dispels those myths that we all may have about Africa. Far from the truth.
So that's awesome.
Yes.
I know we've talked about this before. In recent years, we've been in this push for Americans and people of the African diaspora in general to make this move back to Africa, whether that means relocating, or long-term kind of travel, or permanent resettling, or establishing businesses, and just kind of having Africa be seen as a desirable tourist destination. Whatever that may mean to different people, especially with your organization. You're pushing more for business development as well as government partnership, or to put it in your words, you're not just focused on people returning home to Africa, but getting to know Africa for themselves and being able to integrate into the systems that are already in place. So what does that mean exactly? And what have you observed in your travels, or your experience generally, from those who have traveled or who have relocated to Africa, that makes you place a different emphasis on this? And if you could also use this as an opportunity to speak about some of the projects that you have in place in the coming years.
Yes. So yeah, that's very important. So one of the things that we've been seeing over the few years is this trend to return home, to return to Africa. And although we respect those sentiments, most people do not connect with the continent on that level. Most people have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And so, what we try to do as worldviews is to teach people through travel what it is that you may or may not want um, from the continent. Now, we do use Kenya as our starting point because it's just our signature trip, but we are in partnership with other African governments. But one of the things that we've seen with this trend is there are no processes in place to integrate you into the system. I'm not speaking bad on other organizations that promote this return to Africa. However, you do see with this premises of returning to the continent, there is a creation of a different society within a society that already exists. We as worldviews do not promote separating yourself from the locals on the ground. No, there are already processes in place. There's already culture and resources in place. And so we promote coming to the continent, whether you come through Kenya, Senegal, Liberia, wherever, learn about the people, the culture, the political awareness and issues, um, and the systems in place for residency or dual citizenship or whatever it is that you're interested in, and integrate yourself into the system. Do not create a different society from the one that is already existent. So what we do as a company, we have created our local company there in Nairobi, Kenya. Our local company there is called Views of Africa, where we promote business development through travel. So if you are interested in expounding your business or your pre-existing businesses here in the United States, and you're interested in expanding them to Kenya, we will assist you with all development processes to do that legally through the Kenyan government and integrating you within that system. Also teaching you business culture, a regular day-to-day culture, language. We also offer Kiswahili classes along with those packages. We will walk you through the entire process and set it up for you as your liaison between the government or private sector. But we also want you to be able to feel comfortable, feel that you have really learned about the people there on the ground. And you don't feel like an outsider, but you feel like family once you're finished with this process. And that's what we promote heavily. Again, through tourism or through travel, this is how you're able to even branch off into these other endeavors. But so it's very important to us to integrate ourselves into the African society as opposed to create our own society there.
Very important point. And I'm sure some people might have some questions, so I'm just kind of checking to see. Um, Let me see. So I know that you enjoy solo travel and purposeful traveling. So what are some things that you have learned in your solo trips that you don't think you would have benefited from, I guess, in a group setting? And what is some advice that you would give to women in particular, especially if they're traveling to places that, because I know you like to kind of take risks, but
Yeah,
not every yeah. So, like, what I guess some advice you would give to them if they want to travel to places that are not maybe considered as safe, or
yeah.
maybe doesn't have too many support systems there.
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, I am a solo traveler. I love to just take risk. And as of now, I've been to 43 countries. And most of them have been solo travel. One of the things that I do is I do my background. I read up in the history, but I always have a purpose as to why I want to go. I'm not a huge leisure traveler. I'm just not. When I travel, it is a direct purpose. So most of the time, the purpose is history, our connection to that particular land, and what we have done as a people, whether it's ancient or modern. And I mean us Africans of the diaspora and continental Africans. That is one of the first things that I look for. And then the second is business opportunities. And so that's kind of how I travel. I really do not do a lot of travel leisure or leisure travel. So I think I've only been to one resort. I think out of all of the travels that I've done. But one of the advice I would tell solo women travelers is to, yes, do your your background research. Make sure you have all of your documentations, and just make sure that you are in safe places. Like, even though I may go to risky places, I always make sure that I have a hospital nearby, a police station, a U.S. embassy, and I typically most likely know someone there. Because I've traveled and worked with so many people, when I was working as a civilian contractor, I literally have built relationships with people who are from around the world. So 9 times out of 10, if I'm going there, I know someone or they know someone to connect me with someone. Right? And so just to bring that full circle, that's why Worldview specialize in group travel for solo travelers. For those women who want to travel all over the world, but your friends is like, man, I can't go, my money tight, or I'm scared to go there. Well, we specialize in group travel. So if you're a solo traveler, you can join us with a group of people who are already going, whether they're solo or they're couples or whatever the case may be, and we all connect on the same vibe as solo travelers in a group. So you have a safe environment. And those things that I point out as a part of our recon list. So we make sure that you are safe everywhere you go. And we do specialize in doing reconnaissance. Both Tiffany and I are ex-military. So we always go to the location before we even put an itinerary together for any trip. Build our own connections, and then we bring people along so that we provide our own tours for our own trips.
That's awesome. I don't see any questions just yet, but could you, I guess, speak a little bit more about like how you develop some of these connections and what that means, and also I think you were talking to me about the 2024 project.
Yes.
Something you can talk about more now, or is it still kind of?
Yeah, I can go briefly into it. So, someone had a question, but do you want me to answer the question?
Okay, sure.
They said, are you offering a scholarship for college students who would like to travel? Not as of yet. That's a great idea, though. No, not as of yet. We have our hands in so many things right now, but that is something that we look forward to doing. We did connect with the University of Nairobi, and so they was interested in creating an internship program from here in Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, to Nairobi. So that may be something that we look at in the near future, but not right now. So just watch out for us. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook, and you'll see the journey. But as far as the connection, again, just working with a lot of people from around the world. I mean, I had employees that were from Bosnia, Philippines, Uganda, Kenya, Germany, India, Pakistan, Nepal. So you meet people from all over the world, all different walks of life, and you learn so much. And so for me, meeting these people up close in person led me to believe, like, wait a minute, the world is not that dangerous. It's not as scary as everybody put on, and the media projects all type of stuff, and it's not necessarily true. So that is how we built those connections. But we do have a huge project that we're working on alongside the Kenyan government. Shout out to the Kenyan government for allowing us to even sit up in their offices and pitch this to them as regular African Americans. It's nothing special about us. We're not Ivy League graduates or anything like that. But they took to us, and we now have an official agreement with the Kenyan government. We will be hosting a trade and business summit in Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya, 2024-2025, where we will be inviting 9 other nations within the continent and the Caribbean. Shout out to Jamaica and Bermuda. And each country will be able to showcase what they offer through travel, tourism, and investment in trading on this huge platform. It's something like what Ghana did, but again, it is all inclusive of the continent as a whole. Kenya will just be hosting it with us as the first African Americans to host something at that magnitude, and the first women-owned company to do that in East Africa. We'll also be promoting the EAC, which consists of 6 countries under a African trade agreement. Is Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, South Sudan. And so we're super excited about this. Continue to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and our Facebook as we walk through this journey. We're still in the beginning stages, so I can't share too much of the information, but we're super excited to host this first ever event as a woman-owned African-American company there in East Africa. And we hope that you all join us when it happens.
That's awesome, Kea. Just to kind of round things up briefly, could you speak to us as to why the work you do, I mean, it's clear, but could you just tell us why the work you do is important and what you hope that others can learn from it? And then just to kind of add the family side, what do you hope that your son can benefit from this, like seeing you do this work, and how it might influence his future?
Yeah, for me, it's just super important to just broaden your horizon, right? A lot of us see the world from a very limited point of view. And so when you're able to have access to travel, as we do through worldviews, it changes your perspective of the world. It changes your perspective of people. It changes your perspective of yourself. You learn so much about yourself and things that you would not have tapped into. You're able to do that through travel. And so that is the importance of travel. It's a necessity. It's a necessity. I have learned so much through travel that I would never learn in a book, never learn in college. You know, shout out to our college graduates. But I hope that even in the schools that they promote, and higher education, they promote travel. And it does not always have to pertain to humanitarian. That is always good. But we need more heritage travel, more cultural travel, more educational, investment travel, so that when you graduate and say you're a business major, you can add that to your portfolio, stating that you've actually invested in the country while you were actually in college. So I think it's very, very important. In fact, I know it is. And I want my son, shout out to Xavier. He's 15 now, and he's traveled with me quite a bit. So he has a few stamps in his passport. And I just want him to take away, again, broaden your horizon, and the sky is not the limit, son. You can be whoever you want to be. You can go wherever you want to go in this world and make an impact however you want to do.
I love that, Kea. I mean, it's really important because, and I like the fact that you take him along with you whenever you can, because like for him to see the world at this young age, first of all, it gives him confidence. It gives him it exposes him to so many different things in a good way. And, he can speak more confidently in the classroom or wherever he is because he's not just seeing one area of life. He's seeing so many different perspectives. So that's really amazing that you're doing that. looks like we had a question that came in from Kathy. Do you guys have tours to Liberia?
That's a great question. We actually will be having tours to Liberia come next year or the year after. Excuse me. We are in partnership with a few government officials and private sector partners in Liberia, and I'm going to share a fun fact. Because we are of Gullah Geechee descent, both Tiffany and I, we were able to connect the dots between the Gullah people and Liberia, the Kea people. And we found one of the 6 presidents of Liberia who was actually from Charleston, South Carolina. He was a Geechee Gullah. He moved born and raised, moved to Liberia and became the 6th president of Liberia. Dr. James Smith, shout out to the Smith family. And we had the awesome opportunity to meet the great-grandson of Dr. Smith and the niece of Dr. Smith and spent the entire day with her, connecting the dots between the Gullah people and the Kea people of Liberia. So we will be providing cultural and heritage tours to Liberia sooner than later. So that's a great question. Yes, we will be. It's most wonderful. Anybody really like to travel the whole world? Yeah, travel with us. Definitely travel with us. If y'all have any more questions for me, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer that the best of my ability. How can people contact us? So, yes. So we have all our social media handles. So our IG is Worldviews group on IG. Our Facebook and YouTube is Worldviews Travel Group. We have a few videos on our YouTube channel, so go check it out. Go subscribe. Follow us on Facebook. We do daily updates on our Instagram more often than our Facebook and our YouTube. We upload new videos every week. So check out our past trips. Check out our last trip to Senegal, which was absolutely amazing. And we will have our current trip. My business partners are currently in where they are in Mobay, Jamaica, right now as we speak. So we have a group out there right now. So we're going to be posting videos on our YouTube, our Instagram of our Jamaica trip, which is we promote health and wellness for our Jamaica trip in retreat style tours. So it's very educational. It's very holistic. It's very in tune with Mother Nature there in Jamaica. And we have built a great connection with the Maroon, a compound there, the freedom fighters of Jamaica. And so we're excited to build those relationships there, promoting health and wellness in Jamaica. And then in October, we're going to Kenya and Uganda. Shout out to East Africa. And then in December, we are going to do our first recon to Liberia. So we're super busy this year. Next year is going to be even busier. So shout out to all our partners throughout the continent and the world. Go check out our website, which is wvsvs.com. Again, that is wvsvs.com for our 2021 tours and our 2022 tours if you can't join us this year. I look forward to meeting you all.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kea. I really appreciate you for being on here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is Conversations from the Diaspora, a Building Africa's Future podcast. Take care.